Welcome to the Brenda Perryman Show right here on TV 33 WHPR Comcast 90 in Oakland County and in Detroit. Also, let's see, we're a courtesy of the World Wide Web, www.tv33whpr.com. You're welcome to call in at 313-868-4336. And some of you know the other numbers, but I want to get right into my guest this morning. He is in a race that is a race
Yes, it is.
because you're running against a lot of things. Mr. Godfrey Dillard.
Thank you, Brenda, for having me here.
Again, I have to say you're my candidate.
Wonderful.
I have to say that. Godfrey, you're running for Secretary of State. Let's once again tell the audience first, what are your credentials?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I was an all-state football player, all-state basketball player, nationally recruited. Participated in the civil rights movement by being the first black, one of the first blacks to play in the Southeast Conference, which is Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida. So I experienced racism, discrimination at a young age. Attended Eastern Michigan University, where I met you, and went on to University of Michigan Law School. George Washington, Master's in International Affairs at D.C., and then postgraduate work in international law at Columbia Law School. Of course, I've argued before the United States Supreme Court. I was one of the leaders.
That's part of my pitch to everybody, to those women who were just here. I said, God Dillard.
Yeah, so I argued that case before the United States Supreme Court on behalf of.
What was that like?
Hey, it was the high point of a legal career to be before the United States Supreme Court, and we won. So we guaranteed the right for minorities, blacks, Asians, Latinos to continue to go to these elite schools. And of course, I was a diplomat for several years. I served in Africa. I was in the Belgian Congo. I was a deputy consul general there. And of course, I've received a lot of awards. Lawyer of the Year for the state of Michigan. I'm an former adjunct professor at Wayne State. Esteemed Alumni Award winner from University of Michigan. So I've had a great career as a lawyer, and I'm still trying to give back, and that's why I decided to run for Secretary of State, because I wanted to make a difference in voting.
Let's tell people how important the office of Secretary of State is.
Well, when most people think about the Secretary of State's office, they think about motor vehicles, and certainly the Secretary of State's office is responsible for, tags, driver's licenses, and various different licenses that are issued, fishing and the like. But there's another fundamental job of the Secretary of State, Brenda, and that's voting. The Secretary of State's office is responsible for the time, place, and manner of voting. And when I looked at the office and took a look at the budget of the Secretary of State's office, it's a $224 million budget. Only 3% of that budget went for elections. And I decided that, as a civil rights attorney, that we needed to improve voter participation. And so therefore, my vision of the Secretary of State's office, I certainly are going to deal with motor vehicles. I want to improve lines, reduce lines, and the like at Secretary of State's office, reduce fees if I can. I want to open up voting. And the way to do that, there's some best practices out here, absentee voting for no reason, mail-in registration, online registration, and particularly early voting. Here in Michigan, we only have one day to vote, and that's a problem. Other states do it differently.
Now, do some people get to go into certain offices and vote early or something? It seems like I heard something like that.
That's still, we have absentee voting with specific reasons. You have to be 60 years old, I'm out of town, I'm ill. And what some of the clerks are doing is allowing people to fill out their absentee ballots early and then take it into the clerk's office and file it.
Okay.
But that's not early voting.
That's not early voting.
Early voting is places like Georgia, Colorado, Texas. You have 30 days to vote. So, imagine how the campaign would be different, Brenda, if we're talking about having 30 days to vote. And say we had absentee voting for no reason. That means you could get your family members, your neighbors, hey, go get them absentee ballot, have them fill
Absolutely,
it out, have
absolutely.
them take it in, or, we'd have 30 days to encourage people to vote, young people to vote, vote on the weekend, and those
Our
states that
vote
have it.
is priceless,
Yes.
and we have to be able. How do we get them out? We have to, as I told you before, bad politicians are elected by people who do not vote.
Well, Brenda, but how do we get them out? We must remove the barriers to voting.
Okay.
And when you talk about one day to vote, that's a barrier to
That
voting.
is a barrier. What about people who've had some run-ins with the law?
Well, the only time that they can't really vote is if they're actually,
In jail.
in jail. And so, in Michigan, they can come out and vote, and that's a big block of people. But once again, if we had absentee voting for no reason, early voting, we could attack that 18, 20,000 folks who have been
Absolutely.
convicted of crimes and
Because
get
there's
them to
some
vote.
people who have been who are afraid to go and
Right.
put their names down
Right.
and everything. And a lot of people say the government will have know too much about me. We have to dispel that.
Those are barriers, and what I want to do in the Secretary of State is to talk about these issues. There's a lot of confusion. People think we have photo ID, that you have to have a photo
No,
ID.
you
You
don't.
do not
Right.
have to have it. So the Republican Party wants to suppress the vote, dilute the vote,
Absolutely.
deny the vote. So they don't want these innovative best practices that are going around the country to raise up the number of people to vote. And so when people say that Godfrey, you're a successful lawyer, you've accomplished all of this. Why are you doing it? Well, my feeling is if I can when I win this office, I can actually change how people vote in Michigan, and we'll be able to elect the people who are going to, really deliver on our interests. We won't have these emergency manager laws. We won't have this defunding of education. We won't have a situation where women aren't paid equal pay. And all of these issues that are negatively affecting our communities,
Why
we
are
can
they
change that.
still fighting equal pay for equal work with women?
I can't understand it. It's hard for me to
I just
explain. We're still a male-dominated society. It's a bias. It's a discrimination against women. Our country still has a lot of discrimination that we have to overcome, and profiling of people and the like, and we just have to keep working. But if we can vote in those kinds of public officials and we can get a large percent of our population to vote, if we can educate them as to what the issues are and how those issues affect their daily lives, educating their children, health care, reducing unemployment, all of these issues
absolutely.
that touch us in a very personal way, job creation, creating jobs, and elect people, then we can change it around. But it starts with removing these barriers to voting, these
Yes.
restrictions that prevent people from their voices from being heard, and guaranteeing that their
And
vote.
it's a case if we don't use it, we'll lose it. I believe.
Well, hey, listen, the
I've
last
seen
local.
it happen. North Carolina, or was it Virginia?
Well, what happens is here in Michigan, the last primary, 9%, 16% of people in Detroit voted. I mean, come on.
Well, we have Tom on the line. Let's see what Tom has to say. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning to both of you.
Good
I
morning.
got a question in terms of the students in school who will turn 18 before the election,
Absolutely.
and even those who are away at college
Mm-hmm.
who are going to turn 18 before the election. Is there any way, say, for instance, when you get to the Secretary of State's office, that you could change the law where instead of those students having to come all the way back home to physically vote and, present at the polling site, that they could do it by absentee?
Yeah. Tom, those are barriers to voting. Absolutely. We have senior kids who are in high school that are 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They've removed the civic classes. Imagine if I was able to push through absentee voting for no reason. That means those teachers could distribute these absentee ballots for no reason to these 18 years old
Absolutely.
in their history class, and get them to vote. That's a huge block of voting. Same thing, students away from school. If they're absentee voting for no reason, that you can get those absentee ballots to them, and they could vote while they're away at school. But guess what? If they had 30 or 40 days to vote too, early voting, they
Right.
could come home, particularly kids here in Michigan, could come home to the city where they live and vote in the polling booth. The same thing with the high school students. You could encourage them to go to vote on the weekends.
Right.
So these are all structural barriers to voting, which I want my legacy as Secretary of State to be about, is to eliminate. And you know me a long time, Brenda. You know I'm aggressive. You know I'm an
Yes.
advocate.
Yes.
So you know I'm not scared. You
I
know
know.
what I mean?
I know.
So that's what I want to try to do. And the polls are showing that people are being receptive to what I'm talking about. I'm tied in the polls. I'm dealing with a woman who has been in office since Ronald Reagan, got a lot more money than me. But, it's a tie. If we can get people out to vote on November 4th, this is a very important election. I mean, this will shape the course of Michigan in the last 4 years. Look what we've been dealing with: emergency manager laws, right to work laws, defunding of education, minimum wage issues that are coming up. All of these issues that touch every single person in this state. We got a chance to change that. But we have to go out and vote on November 4th. And
I
that's
just
what it's
don't
about.
understand, because we come from a legacy where we couldn't vote.
Correct.
Right, exactly.
We couldn't vote.
Yeah.
And my mother, when she was growing up, she said she grew up in South Carolina. They just thought the people just appeared as mayor.
Right.
They didn't even teach the fact that you had to vote.
Correct.
And so when she came up here, that's when she learned about it, and that's when she thought, I have to do this, and has never missed an election, including your election. She has voted for you already, absentee. So,
But that's what it is, Brendan. It's barriers to voting, roadblocks to reduce participation, and there's nothing in the law that requires it. We can change that.
well, thank you, Tom, and we have Pierre on the line.
right.
Thank you so much. And get them out there to vote, Tom. Make sure, you have a voice. We have Pierre on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Godfrey. You got my vote, man. I congratulate you on the win already, because I know you're going to pull that off.
Do you have a question, Pierre, you'd like to ask Mr. Dillard?
Well, I don't have a question. It's more of a comment. It's with these ads that this governor is putting out, this latest ad he put out. I just don't understand why they, continue to put these ads out.
Well, when people,
Lies.
well, when people are in trouble, they have a tendency to go negative. But I have a belief that people can see through that and really focus in on what the issues are all about. So the issues are very simple, as I've talked before: emergency manager, funding of education, unemployment, treatment of women, fair treatment of minority and marginalized groups, increasing work, adjusting the tax system such that we don't continue to give these big corporations and billionaires these tax breaks, fair taxing for return to earned income tax credit to working class people, and find incentives for economic development within our communities and other marginalized communities. All of these things are possible, but they're only possible through the vote.
Pierre?
And it seems like he's campaigning through these ads. This latest one he put on, lately he was just talking about Michigan. But this latest campaign ad that he's doing for himself, as if, people don't know what he's doing, but he put on there, he said 50 years, what did he say? The last one was 50 years or something.
Right,
But
right.
he's more or less talking about Detroit.
That's what he's
You know?
talking about. Absolutely. That's what he's talking about.
I
So,
think he said 50 years of destruction or something like that.
Yes,
But then
I-
he just says Detroit.
Well,
That's another slap in the
well,
face.
if you
Like,
know,
what are you saying?
you've
All
been
the other mayors ain't do nothing?
you've been
They didn't do
observant,
no good? Coleman Young didn't do nothing?
Pierre. You have been observant. You know what he has done, or lack thereof of what he has done. So it's important for you to help us get the vote out. Will you be encouraging others to get the vote out?
Almost definitely. I'm even taking them.
That's it. That's what we want to see.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and, and,
I mean,
and that's what we, it's not just about your individual vote. It's about making sure your children vote, your neighbor vote, the folks who you work with to vote. If we, we've got President Obama coming in here tomorrow to rev up the support for voting, and that's the main
And
reason why he's coming here.
glad he's coming in too. I'm so happy. We need him in. We need him to come in and motivate these people.
Well, you could pick your tickets up at any Democratic office.
That's correct. You can pick them up at any Democratic office, or you can go online to the Democratic Party and contact them. They'll give you the locations where you can pick them up.
Absolutely. And we have, thank you, Pierre. We have Tina on the line.
Yes, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, very good. And it is my understanding from a caller there on the previous program that Snyder is actually going to elementary schools and giving out coupons to kids.
Yes.
To take home to their parents. Now, how legal is that, Mr. Dillard? That doesn't. It's my understanding that you cannot pay people to vote in this country. Now, if that is going on, that's illegal, and he should be called in on that.
Well, first, could you explain to me what kind of coupon is he giving to them?
I don't know. I just heard another caller allude to it.
Well,
and anything that would be a value, money value, I do believe that should be illegal. And I'm not a lawyer, but I'm wondering about that.
Well, I can't really comment on that because I really don't know what kind of coupon that he's giving to them. But the idea certainly it may be morally offensive or.
Can you speak up, sir? I could barely hear you.
I said it may be morally or ethically offensive that someone is giving someone money to encourage them to vote. But that goes to my point that this administration does not enforce campaign financing laws. They deal with some small compliance issues, and certainly to be the first lawyer to be the Secretary of State, I'm certainly going to take a close look at compliance issues or these issues that you're talking about. I want to make sure that we put an end to those practices. And like I say, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, so I don't want to make.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, and I just thought I'd make you aware of it. I mean, since somebody just called in on the last show and said something about it, I wasn't aware of it either. But again,
I heard about it.
If it is something going on with that, it should be looked into really before the election because that's not cool.
Well, but that's up to the Secretary of State's office to look into those matters. As I said, this administration does not enforce the campaign finance laws the way I think they should, and certainly, when I'm elected Secretary of State, I will do that. Hey, listen, I'm trying to be the first African American to hold a statewide office in the state of Michigan in 30 years. The last African American
was Richard
Austin. So,
yes, I remember.
I've got
I want to let you know I am out canvassing for the Democratic Party. I've been going out every Saturday, and things are really, really looking good. And we're just getting, just everybody just to get on out there and vote. That's what we've been doing when we're going on these porches and knocking, okay?
Right.
So just wanted to let you know that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Tina, and make sure you encourage everybody to get out there and vote.
No doubt.
Brenda, yes, we can make we can make these changes, and we can make these changes, and yes, we will make these changes, but it starts with us voting. It starts with November 4th, folks. That's when it starts. If you want change, now is the moment. Now is the time for the citizens of Detroit to step up. All of the prognosticators are saying if the Detroit vote, if the Wayne County vote comes out in the force that it's necessary, we can win this election. And we've got hundreds of thousands of Wayne County, Detroit voters that did not participate in the last mid-year election. And therefore, we ended up with, Snyder. So now we have a chance to correct that. But it requires us to wake up on Tuesday morning and make sure that we find some time within that day to go down to your local polling place and vote. And if you don't know where to vote, you can call the local clerk's office, or Janice Winfrey. You can call Kathy Garrett. They will inform you of where the polling places are. You can contact the Democratic Party online. They will help you to understand where the polling spots are. So there's no excuse for lack of information. There's no excuse for ignorance. As I said, if you want to make sure your schools are funded, if you want to make sure you get a fair wage, if you want to make sure women are treated fairly, if you want to make sure you get adequate health care, you need to vote. It's just that simple. That's what America's all about. That's what democracy is all about. It's not about the billionaires. It's not about the millionaire corporations. It's about each individual person going to the polling, expressing their opinion about what's in their best interest. And that's what we need to do, Detroit. That's what we need to do, Wayne County.
You know, it's funny because in 2008, when I went to vote that morning before I got to work, I saw so many black people in line and everything. We need to have that every election.
Absolutely, Brenda. We need to have it. We need to understand that elections are important. That your vote counts. Every single vote counts. And we need to reestablish that so that we can really take back our cities and take back our communities and elect the kind of people who are going to deliver the kinds of legislation and services that we want.
Absolutely. And I think it's been strategized by the Republican Party to try to show people that their vote has been disenfranchised by doing the emergency manager, even though people voted against that.
Well, that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Here you have a ballot initiative where you present it to the entire state population. Do you want emergency manager laws or not? And guess what? The people of the state of Michigan said no. And then you turn around and you have a Republican-dominated legislature that ignores what the people want and passes a new emergency manager law. Listen, folks, we've got a Republican governor, Republican lieutenant governor, Republican attorney general, Republican secretary of state, Republican House, Republican Senate, and Republican Supreme Court dominated by Republicans. And you wonder why we have this emergency manager. It's quite simple. They have a monopoly on power. We have to change that on November 4th. We have to.
Well, something I've been thinking about is the fact that Detroit is such a mecca in so many ways, and they wanted to come back to Detroit.
Right.
They know it's the most valuable piece of property in the state.
Oh, listen, they stripping Detroit of its assets. I mean, who goes to Belle Isle anymore? Okay, the Water Board, the DIA, Coble Hall, you know, and then you wonder why council people on the council are resigning, right?
Right.
What work do they have to do?
I know.
But you know, we can change that by starting with November 4th, changing the people that we have at the highest state offices, because all power falls down from the state. If we can get people like Mark Schauer as our governor and Gary Peters as our senators, then we can begin to change what's happening here in Detroit. If you elect the Godfrey Dillard, we're going to begin to improve voting and the like. We're going to make a difference.
And there was something you said last time that I really liked, because I told you, when you go to the Secretary of State's office, you're all chipper and everything, and then you open the door and you see all the people, and your body just goes down. So what can you do to keep us uplifted?
Okay, well, we got to reduce their lines, and there's a lot of best practices around the country. You know, one of them is the Regional Service Center, and I'm not talking about closing all of the offices of the Secretary of State. All I'm saying is I want to add the Regional Service Center as an add-on to what we're doing, And when you look at this, you got 30 or 40 lines, special lines for senior citizens, physically challenged, language barriers, and the like. You can get people in quickly and get people out. So it's a different model that's being used in other states, but I'm not going to eliminate all these Secretary of State's offices. My opponents are starting to talk about somewhat. You know, I'm going to add it on. It's a
Add on.
It's an add-on.
We have Theo on the line. Good morning, Theo. How are you?
Good morning. Happy Friday to both of you. I'm looking forward to a successful election day on Tuesday. And, you know, the weatherman is trying to scare people with this sleet and snow business. But right now, people can go to Wayne County Community College, Northwest Campus, and out of the Southfield and be inside out of the elements, or to the East Side campus on Conner 994 and be out of the elements. Be comfortable, take their time, and vote. They could do it right today and vote for Godfrey, Dillard, Secretary of State. As a matter of fact, if they vote straight Democratic, then they won't miss him or the other Democrats and Mark Shower, et cetera. You know,
Absolutely.
it is, as you have said, a Republican-dominated state. And Brenda, I think it was you who was saying that the President, Barack Obama, is in need of support. And we have a candidate here in the state. This state needs to be a Democratic state. We don't need to be dominated and pushed back onto the plantation.
You know, unfortunately, people vote against their own interests all the time. They vote.
And it's our responsibility as we take it on to let them know they don't need to vote against their own best interest.
Well, you know, I got a different
and
twist.
people will say, I don't know who Shaw is. Well, you know who Snyder is. And it is true that Snyder has been sneaking around and slithering around the city of Detroit. And the vouchers, by the way, are for a store outside of the city of Detroit. He didn't even have the decency or respect to give them a voucher to get toiletries over at Myers, which is in Detroit. How about that?
That's
So
crazy.
I asked if anybody
Godfrey
sees
has
him, take a picture of it so we can put it on Facebook.
Theo.
He must be scared. And Dillard, you're doing a great job. You really are waking people up.
Theo,
and, Brenda, you and I have to continue to help wake people up too.
Godfrey has another twist on what you were saying.
When we say we vote against our interests, not voting is voting against your interests because
too.
That's a vote that doesn't get counted.
Right.
And so it's not, you know, part of our problem is we don't participate in the voting process. So
but we want to sit back and complain.
So
I'm
not voting is voting against your interests. You know, so that's why it's important. And, you know, my campaign is about eliminating these structural barriers. Stop talking about the symptoms. Make it easier for people to go to the polls to vote. And that's what I want to do as the next Secretary of State.
Right.
So, Theo, does Hood Research have some people going out and about too? And will people be helping people go to the polls who need to be?
And the number for Hood Research is 931-2700. But you know what, Brenda?
Yes.
For those people who cannot identify with our ancestors who were murdered, who fought dogs, water hoses, and the racists, particularly in the South, they need to tell them that if you don't vote, you are participating in the process. You're voting against yourself if you don't get up off your behinds and go. Right. But I tell them, look at your purse, your pocket. That money that you spend is taxed, and those taxes are used to make the paychecks for people who are doing all these dastardly things to us. You want to keep paying people who are misusing and abusing
to persecute you.
Identify with that.
Hey, wait, I want to remind everybody, you know, I have a great website. I'd like for you to go on there and see what I've been doing, follow my platform, and hopefully donate a few dollars. That's GodfreyDillard.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. You know, all these new social media outlets. Instagram, all these kind of things. But, hey, folks, this is a very, very important election. This is the moment. This is
your moment.
This is the moment. Yes, we can. Yes, we must. Yes, we will.
Yes, we will.
And yes, we better. Yes, we better.
Yes, we better.
Yes, we better. Well, thank you so much for your insight again, Theo. And these next 4 days are going to be just tantamount to everything. It means
Right.
everything. And
The election commission is open tomorrow, Brenda, for people to go there and vote on the
where
boulevard. Yes.
You're on the boulevard. Yes, you know, as
Yes.
I said, you can do the absentee
You don't have to wait till
voting.
Tuesday.
right.
Today and Monday, WC3 East and West Campus. Today, tomorrow, Monday, election commission on the boulevard, West Grand Boulevard.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you
all
so
right.
much. And Godfrey, thank you, and I wish you the best.
Brenda, hey. And thank you so much for all the good work you're doing in the community, Brenda. You know, we go back a long way.
I know.
We go back a long
We
way.
do what
but,
we
but,
can.
But we're still battling, right?
And we're still young. We're still young from those 18-year-olds.
Right.
So listen, everybody, remember, in just a few minutes, I have two of the actors from O-Town the Musical. They're going to be on Table Talk this morning with me, and I am very excited because I saw the show. So here we go. Godfrey, thank you once again. Love you. I wish you the best. I'm telling everybody about you.
All right. Thank you so much, Brenda.
And
Let's go win.
let's go win.
All right.
If you vote for nobody else, you vote for him. All right, everybody.
Thank you so
We
much.
will see you again in about 5 minutes or less.